Welcome to the Simplicity of Wellness podcast. I'm Amy White, holistic nutritionist, life coach, and weight loss specialist. If you're tired of overcomplicating food, battling your body, and starting over every Monday, you're in the right place. Here we talk about what actually works, simple shifts in food, mindset, and habits that lead to lasting change. Let's dive in. Welcome back, Simplifiers. I recently finished a 75-day challenge inside my Hangry to Healthy membership, and I learned something about myself that I did not expect. Actually, I learned something about habits that I think is really important if you've ever tried to change the way you eat, start exercising, drink more water, stop snacking at night, or make pretty much any lifestyle change, and then watch that new behavior completely disappear the minute life got messy. Because that's exactly what happened to me. And the weirdest part, the habits that disappeared were the ones I was enjoying the most. So today I want to talk about what happened, why I don't think it means those habits failed, and why you may need to completely rethink what it means when you say, I was doing so well, and then I stopped. Because maybe you didn't fail. Maybe the habit just wasn't finished cooking. Inside my Hangry to Healthy membership, we just finished our version of the challenge 75 Days Soft. It's definitely not the same as the 75-day hard challenge, which you may have also heard of. Our 75-day soft challenge wasn't a challenge where we had a giant list of rules, and if you missed something on day 42, you were supposed to go back and start over on day 1. No thank you. That wasn't the point. The rules were really simple. Choose between 1 and 5 things that you want to prioritize for the next 75 days. Every day, check in with the community and vote in a poll. I got them all, or I got some. That's it. No judgment. No good day, bad day, no I blew it. Just awareness and self-accountability. I chose 5 things. I wanted to track my food. I wanted to move my body every day. I wanted to drink 8 glasses of water. I wanted to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book. And I wanted to journal for 10 minutes a day. Now, some of those weren't really new behaviors for me. I track my food most of the time anyway, so that was an easy one. Moving my body is already part of my lifestyle, so that also felt pretty easy. Water, now this one was going to be really hard for me. For some reason, drinking 8 glasses of water was my nemesis. So that was probably the thing I had to be the most consistent with. But the other 2, reading and journaling, were different. I'd done both of them in the past, and I knew I enjoyed them. But I hadn't been doing either one consistently. And I loved doing them. The reading challenge was fantastic. 10 pages. That's all I had to read. And because of that little 10-page goal, I finished 2 nonfiction books that I honestly don't think I would have finished otherwise. They were dense. They were really good. They had a ton of information that I wanted to learn, but they were a lot to process. If my goal had been, I'm going to sit down and read for an hour, I wouldn't have done it consistently and I wouldn't have finished those books. 10 pages, that was totally manageable. And then there was the journaling. I think that may have been my favorite part of the entire challenge. 10 minutes every day to sit down, think, write, ask myself questions, notice things. I really enjoyed it, and I was doing it consistently. Then summer happened. I was out of my normal routine for about 3 weeks because of vacation and travel, and my 5 priorities started falling apart. Some survived better than others. I continued to move my body. My water intake was actually pretty good. I stopped tracking my food, but that was sort of an intentional choice. I made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to track while I was traveling. But you know what completely disappeared? Reading and journaling, the 2 things that I had been enjoying the most. And here's the part that really got my attention. I didn't decide to stop doing them. I didn't think, I hate journaling, I'm done. I didn't suddenly decide that reading wasn't important. I didn't consciously quit either one. They just disappeared. In fact, they disappeared so completely that it took me a while to even realize I wasn't doing them anymore. And when I noticed, I was sad, but I was also curious. Why did these 2 things that I genuinely enjoyed just disappear? I think we have this idea that if we really like something or if it's really important to us, we'll just keep doing it. And if we don't keep doing it, we assume that says something about us. Maybe I'm just not consistent. Maybe I'm not disciplined enough. Maybe I'm someone who starts things and doesn't finish them. Maybe I just can't make habits stick. But what if that's not what happened at all? This is where the research on habit formation gets really interesting. You've probably heard that it takes 21 days to form a habit. That number gets repeated everywhere, but there's really no empirical support for a magical 21-day habit rule. One of the most frequently cited studies on habit formation is research by Philippa Lally and colleagues. They found that participants reach what researchers called automaticity, basically the point where a behavior begins to happen with less conscious effort, at a median of 66 days. But here's the part that matters. The range was 18 to 254 days. Think about that. For one person and one behavior, it could happen fairly quickly. For another person or another behavior, it could take the better part of a year. So there isn't a magical day 21. There isn't even a magical day 30. There isn't even a magical day 66. And this really made me think about our 75-day challenge, because technically I'd been journaling and reading consistently for almost 75 days. I mean, it makes sense to think, well, those are habits now, and I'm done. Except clearly, I wasn't. Because as soon as my normal environment and routine changed, those behaviors disappeared. Basically, the way I think about it, they weren't finished cooking. And the research helped me understand why. Simple behaviors tend to become automatic faster than complicated behaviors. Think about drinking a glass of water compared to going to the gym. Drinking water is pretty simple. You get a glass, you fill the glass, you drink. Going to the gym, that's not actually one behavior. You may have to figure out when you're going to go, make room in your schedule, get your clothes ready, change, drive to the gym, figure out what you're going to do once you get to the gym, do the workout, drive home, shower. It's a whole chain of behaviors. Research looking at real-world habit formation has found that something like regular gym attendance can take months, not weeks, to become established. And this is so important when we're talking about changing your health, because I'm going to eat healthier isn't one habit either. Think about everything that might be hiding inside that one sentence. Maybe you're learning to shop differently. You're keeping different foods in the house. You're reading labels. You're planning your protein before you plan the rest of your meal. You're changing your breakfast. You're packing your food for work. You're ordering differently at restaurants. You're learning what actual hunger feels like. You're not automatically grabbing something every time you walk through the kitchen. You're responding differently to stress. You're changing what you do at 8:30 at night when you're sitting on the couch and suddenly want something sweet. Those aren't one behavior. That's a collection of new behaviors. And some of the behaviors you're trying to replace, you have probably been practicing for decades. So imagine you've been working on your nutrition for 6 weeks. You're doing great. You're eating differently. You're planning meals. You're not grazing as much. You're getting more protein. Maybe you've started going to the gym. You're feeling better. Your clothes are starting to fit differently. And then work gets crazy. You go on vacation. The holidays happen. Your kids come home. Someone gets sick. You're sleeping terribly. Life becomes unpredictable. And suddenly, you find yourself standing in the kitchen eating crackers out of the box. And your brain goes, see, I knew I couldn't stick with it. But wait, what if that's the wrong conclusion? Think about this. The old behavior may have had 10 years to become automatic, 20 years, 30 years even. The new behavior has had 6 weeks. Which one do you think your brain is going to reach for when life becomes stressful and unpredictable? Of course, the familiar behavior has an advantage. That's what your brain already knows how to do without requiring much thought. And another piece of the habit research is really important here. Context matters. Habits become stronger when they're connected to stable cues. Same time, same place, same preceding routine. Think about brushing your teeth. You probably don't spend much mental energy every night deciding whether you're going to brush your teeth. Your nighttime routine itself starts cueing the behavior. But what happens when we're trying something new? We may not realize how much the environment is helping us. At home, I had my routine. My journal was there, my book was there, my normal schedule was there. My day had familiar anchors. Then I went away. Different environment, different schedule, different cues. And suddenly the new behaviors were no longer being prompted in the same way. That's interesting because it means the disappearance of the behavior doesn't necessarily tell me journaling didn't work. It tells me journaling isn't automatic enough yet to survive a major disruption in my routine. That's useful information. And listen to this. If you've ever said, I was doing so well until vacation, I was doing so well until Christmas, I was doing so well until work got crazy, I was doing so well until we had company, I was doing so well until I got sick, I was doing so well until life happened. And then you use what happened next as evidence that you can't do this. Maybe that's not what happened. Maybe the behavior simply wasn't automatic yet. Maybe it needed more repetitions. Maybe it needed more time. Maybe it wasn't done cooking. That changes what happens next, because instead of deciding, well, there I go again, I blew it, you can say, interesting. That habit disappeared when my routine changed. Apparently, that one needs more practice. No drama, no judgment, just information. And then you pick it back up. This is probably the biggest thing I want you to take away from this episode. You're not starting over. I think we've really messed ourselves up with that language. I have to start over Monday. I'm starting my diet over. I have to get back on track. I was doing so well and now I'm back at square one. No, you're not. If I journaled consistently for almost 75 days, went on vacation and stopped journaling, those 75 days didn't disappear. My brain didn't erase them. I don't have to go back and somehow redo day one. I just need to give the behavior another repetition, and then another one, and then another one. I'm not starting over. I'm continuing. Think about what that could mean for weight loss. You go on vacation and eat differently for a week. You're not starting over. You don't exercise for 10 days. You're not starting over. You have a stressful week and find yourself snacking more than usual. You're not starting over. You noticed. That's information. Now what? Do the next repetition. Make the next meal. Take the next walk. Go to the gym today. Make your protein-forward breakfast tomorrow morning. You don't need to make up for everything you didn't do. You don't need to punish. You don't need to detox. You don't need to slash your calories. You don't need to promise yourself that you'll never miss another day. You just continue. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Inside Hangry to Healthy, we're starting another challenge, but I'm changing my approach this time. Instead of picking 5 things, I'm picking one thing, journaling. This challenge is going to be for 30 days. But I want to be really clear about something. I'm not saying I'm going to journal for 30 days and then on day 31, ta-da, my journaling habit will officially be formed. That's exactly what the research tells us not to assume. 30 days is simply my next check-in point. I'm giving journaling another 30 days to cook, and I'm changing something else. Last time my goal was to journal for 10 minutes. This time, I'm making the minimum ridiculously easy. Actually, I'm making it stupid simple. My goal for the next 30-day challenge is to write 1 sentence in my journal every day. That's it, 1 sentence. It can be a thought, a question, an observation, something I'm grateful for, something that annoyed me, something I learned, something I want to remember. I could literally write. I have absolutely no idea what to write tonight. Done. Habit completed. Now, ideally, I'll write more. I probably will write more most days because I enjoy journaling. Maybe I'll sit there for 10 minutes. Maybe I'll write 2 pages. Great. That's bonus. But it isn't required. 1 sentence is the goal. And there's a reason I'm doing that. I want the minimum to be so easy that I can wake up at 11:45 p.m. and suddenly think, oh shoot, I didn't journal today. And I can grab my journal, write one sentence, and go back to sleep. I don't need 10 minutes. I don't need the perfect morning routine. I don't need my favorite pen and a cup of coffee and beautiful sunlight coming through the window. I need one sentence. Because right now, my goal isn't to become the world's greatest journaler. My goal is repetition. I want to keep giving my brain the experience. This is something we do. This is something we do. This is something we do again and again and again. And I think there's a really important lesson here for lifestyle change. We tend to make the minimum requirement our ideal behavior. I'm going to exercise for an hour 5 days a week. I'm going to cook dinner every night. I'm going to meal prep every Sunday. I'm going to walk 10,000 steps every single day. I'm never going to eat sugar again. And then we get to a day when the ideal isn't possible. And because we can't do the whole thing, we do nothing. What if you created a floor instead? What's the smallest version of the behavior that keeps you practicing? Maybe your movement habit isn't, I have to work out for 45 minutes. Maybe your minimum is, put on my shoes and walk for 5 minutes. Most days, you might keep walking. But on the worst Tuesday imaginable, 5 minutes counts. And here's the important part. The purpose of those 5 minutes isn't necessarily to get an amazing workout. It's to protect the repetition. You're reinforcing, this is what I do. At the end of 30 days, I'm not going to ask, did I complete the challenge? That's not very interesting to me. Instead, I'm going to ask, how stable does this habit feel now? Do I think about journaling without needing a reminder? Do I find myself naturally reaching for my journal? Does journaling have a place in my day? Or what happens to my journaling habit on a really busy day or when my schedule changes? How much conscious effort does it still require for me to journal? Maybe journaling still feels really new. Great, I'll give it another 30 days. Maybe it's feeling pretty solid. Maybe I continue journaling and I add another tiny habit that I want to begin practicing. We'll see. I'm not going to let the calendar decide when the habit's done. I'm going to let the habit tell me. That's the experiment. 30 days is a check-in point, not a finish line. So I want you to think about something you've been wanting to change. Maybe it's related to food. Maybe it's movement. Maybe it's sleep. Maybe it's drinking water. Maybe it's something completely unrelated to your physical health. What's one thing you'd really like to become more consistent with? Here's the second question, and I think this one matters even more. How stupid simple can you make this behavior? Remember, you're not shooting for your ideal version of this behavior, not the version that you think should count. What's the version you could still do when your days go completely sideways? Maybe it's one sentence, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's one glass of water, putting the protein on your plate first, putting your walking shoes on. Whatever it is, create the floor. You can always do more, but more is the bonus. And then practice. Not because day 21 is magical, not because day 30 is magical, and certainly not because day 66 is magical. Practice because every repetition gives that behavior more history, more familiarity, more opportunity to become something your brain recognizes as, this is just what we do. If you're listening to this and thinking, I want to do this with you, come join me inside Hangry to Healthy. We do challenges like this all the time, but they're not about proving that you can be perfect for 30 days. That's not what I'm interested in, and that's not what the group is about. These challenges are about choosing something you want to work on, paying attention to yourself, practicing it, and having a group of like-minded people doing the same thing right alongside you. No judgment, awareness, and self-accountability. If you miss Tuesday, we're not going to be ripping up the calendar and sending you back to day 1. Wednesday is another opportunity to give the habit a repetition. In the next 30 days, I'll be working on journaling. You get to choose what you're working on. Maybe it's a protein-forward breakfast. Maybe it's walking. Maybe it's water. Maybe it's packing your lunch. Maybe it's getting to bed earlier. Maybe it's reading. Maybe it's something completely different. Pick one thing. Make it stupid simple, and let's give it 30 days to cook. Then we'll check in. How stable is it? Does it need another 30 days? Or are you ready to keep that one going and layer in something new? This is how we build a lifestyle. Not by waking up Monday morning and somehow becoming a completely different person. Not by doing everything perfectly, and definitely not by deciding we failed every time life interrupts us. We practice, we notice, we adjust, and we continue. Because you're not starting over. You're giving the habit another repetition, and then another and another. Give your brain the time it needs. Give the habit the time it needs. Let it cook. And maybe one day you'll realize you don't have to work so hard to remember anymore. It simply becomes something you do. And that, simplifiers, is how we create change that actually has a chance to last. That's food freedom and fat loss without the fight. If you'd like to join me and the other members inside Hangry to Healthy for our next 30-day challenge, you'll find the link in the show notes. That's all for today. I'll be back in the next episode.